Hello everyone, and welcome to the Synology Product Online Training. We have an awesome topic for everyone here today, going over all the different Synology features you can use as an Apple user. Quick introduction, my name is Cody. I'm a product manager here at Synology, and I'll be your guide for this one this time around. On the agenda today, we're going to start off by taking a look at the different file serving options you have as a Mac user inside of the Synology ecosystem using file protocols and applications like Synology Drive. We're then going to take a look at the different backup options you have available to you for your macOS devices, utilizing some packages like Active Backup for Business. Lastly, we're going to take a look at Synology Photos and how you can use this application to manage all of your memories, and how you can use this application to move away from public cloud providers that you may be relying on today. Moving on into section 1 on file serving for macOS users. For this section, we're going to start off by taking a look at networking and protocol settings inside of DSM's control panel so that you can utilize many of these different features effectively. We're then going to take a look at the normal file protocols that you have available inside of the Synology NAS, and we're going to round things out by looking at Synology Drive. Now you can do more advanced file serving tasks such as on-demand syncing with your macOS devices. As a Mac user that may be using their system for business purposes or for creative purposes, there is some networking features you're going to want to take into account whenever you're setting up your Synology NAS to get the most performance possible for either of those use cases. For link aggregation or bonding in the Synology NAS, this allows you to link two physical network interfaces together on the Synology NAS to increase overall throughput. Now, if you linked two 1 gigabit Ethernet connections together, you would have 2 gigabit Ethernet capability in terms of overall throughput for that bond. However, this is not going to increase your throughput for single client access just using link aggregation and bonding. Link aggregation and bonding is most effective in shared environments, and whenever multiple people are accessing that bond at the same time, then you would see a realization of greater throughput overall on that connection. Now, if you're a single user and you do not plan to share access to the NAS over SMB, for example, and you're just a home office user, then SMB multi-channel is a great solution. Again, it's only really for the SMB service for file serving, but it does enhance that single client throughput performance. Now, in terms of what file protocols you actually want to utilize in our system, you definitely want to focus on using the SMB file protocol. It's going to be the one that allows the most cross-platform interaction and has the latest features like SMB multi-channel we just mentioned. You want to completely avoid using AFP now since it's no longer supported by Apple. Here we are on our main Synology NAS device, and we're going to begin setting up our Synology NAS as a file server destination for macOS devices. We're going to be doing so over the SMB protocol. And keep in mind that this protocol is cross-platform. So if you have a Windows environment, for example, a lot of these steps will be the same minus all of the time machine functionality we're going to be talking about. Now, we're going to move through the steps for creating the shared folder as if we're going to use this folder as a time machine destination. Keep in mind some of these settings you wouldn't enable for a shared folder you're using for normal file serving, and I'll try and point those out as we go along. So to set up this shared folder for Time Machine for the first time and use the Synology NAS for file serving in general, we're going to want to create a shared folder and click this Create button and click Create Shared Folder and follow through with this wizard. We're going to name this folder Time Machine and disable the Recycle Bin functionality. If you're going to use this folder for normal file serving, then you would want to keep that Enable Recycle Bin setting on. Now, under this next screen, we're going to be able to enable things like warm and encrypted shared folders, but since this is going to be a Time Machine destination, we're going to want to leave those disabled for best practices. So now that we have our shared folders created, we want to make sure we have our file protocols in place so we can use our NAS as a file server. Now, the SMB settings under file services here are enabled by default, and we want to leave this on for our macOS environment. Under advanced, we're also going to want to enable the Bonjour service so we can broadcast this Time Machine functionality over SMB. We're also going to check what shared folders we actually want broadcasted as Time Machine destinations, and we're going to select that accordingly, hit OK, and then hit Apply after that. Now, once that's all finished, since we're going to be utilizing this folder as a Time Machine destination, we're also going to go through the process of creating a Time Machine user and also set up a quota for this user on this Time Machine shared folder. We're going to go back over some of these details a little bit later, but essentially, if you're going to use this folder as a normal file server destination, you would do a similar process. You might create a normal user for your users actually interacting with the file server and set a quota for them as well. Just in this scenario, in this demo, we're setting up our user and our quota for this Time Machine service specifically. So once we've set up our user and selected our user quota and also allowed this SMB service for this user, we can now utilize this time machine service utilizing our Synology NAS. And keep in mind, we are able to actually interact with this NAS now over our SMB protocol. As you can see here, we can connect to our server on our macOS device by using that SMB pathway you saw previously under File Services in Control Panel. And once we're all connected and logged in, we're going to be able to begin interacting with the Synology NAS through this SMB protocol. Now keep in mind, once again, we set up some settings here that were unique to time machine tasks. You may not use all those settings for different normal file server tasks. We were just using some additional settings in this case, getting ready for some future demos we'll take a look at in just a second. One of the easiest ways to interact with the files on your Synology NAS is through your web browser utilizing FileStation. Now, FileStation allows you to interact with this NAS on any computer, pretty much any browser, and gives you access to all the different file operations you'd expect for a normal file server that you might have physically located right near you. Just FileStation is accessible from anywhere. Synology Drive takes those file operations we just discussed and expands upon them. Synology Drive's client allows you to sync your macOS device with your Synology NAS, and utilizing functionality like on-demand sync, you can make sure you're only syncing the data you actually need on that local macOS device. This is significant because your Synology NAS may have tens of terabytes of data upon it, and you can't possibly sync all that down to that premium storage that is local to your macOS device. Alongside all this on-demand sync functionality, there's also options to do live collaboration with your peers. You can edit documents live with those peers utilizing Synology Office and Synology Drive in tandem, and it gives you a very public cloud experience for editing documents with your peers, but this environment you own yourself. And lastly, Synology Drive itself is fully cross-platforming, allowing macOS users and Windows users to collaborate seamlessly. So on our main Synology NAS, we're going to begin setting up our Synology Drive environment so we can utilize our macOS devices with Synology Drive itself. Now to do so, we're going to open up our Synology Drive admin console you see here and go down to Team Folders. Now Team Folders is going to be where you enable your normal shared folders as Synology Drive enabled folders as well. So we have an accounting shared folder, for example, that is enabled in this environment. So now we can sync against this shared folder that has been enabled as a team folder in Synology Drive. Now just to show you we have some data inside of this accounting folder, let's go into FileStation. You can see we're drilling down into this folder structure, and you can see underneath this 2024 folder that we do have some data in there. So to interact with this data on your Synology NAS while on the go, if you're a worker who may be traveling, you're going to want to integrate your Synology Drive client on your desktop as you see here. We're going to be enabling a sync task, and we'll be revisiting the backup task at a later time in a later demo. We're going to choose what folder we want to sync with your Synology NAS, and this is going to be one of the team folders we integrated with previously, so we're going to choose that accounting folder. Now on the second bar here, you're going to be able to choose where you actually want this folder to live on your macOS device. We're going to enable on-demand sync, however, so that's going to gray out this second bar, and we're going to actually name the task itself. Once that's all complete, we're going to allow this initial sync to complete. And once we see a green check mark, I'm going to be able to click this link here right underneath that accounting label, and it's going to jump right into our macOS device and show us where this lives on our device right here. Now, as you can see, if we look at our 2024-2023 folder, there's a cloud icon next to them. That means they're available when they're online, and it can be synced on demand if you have an internet connection. Now, you can also pin these folders locally permanently, like you just saw here. And now we can drill down into these various folders and begin interacting with the files you see here. For example, we can open up an Excel document, edit the Excel document, save it to our local destination, and that'll be automatically synced back up to our Synology NAS whenever we have connection. And let's go ahead and check our logs. You can see our logs on our Drive client actually showed that we did upload that change to that Excel document, and likewise on the Synology NAS side, you can also see that change reflected inside of FileStation. So that's how you set up your sync tasks with your macOS device and your Synology NAS device. And by using powerful functionality like on-demand sync, you can use that premium storage on your macOS devices most effectively. Moving on into section 2, the different backup options you have for your macOS device inside of the Synology ecosystem. In this section, we're going to start off by taking a look at Time Machine. And rather than going over what Time Machine is, we're actually going to take a look at some different tips and tricks you want to implement on your Synology NAS to use it as a destination for your Time Machine tasks. We're then going to take a look at Synology Drive's backup task and how you can use this application you might already be using to also back up your macOS devices at the file level. Now, if you needed full image-based backups, you can use Synology's Active Backup for Business, which allows you to take a full image of your macOS devices. When using your Synology NAS as a time machine destination, there's going to be some settings you want to configure before initiating that first backup. You want to utilize the SMB service because since macOS 10.12 Sierra and above, the SMB service is the default protocol for time machine backup tasks. And again, AFP is not supported by Apple any longer. Now, for these backup tasks to your Synology NAS, you're going to want to create a time machine user and place a quota for that user, because Time Machine will gobble up all of the space on your volume, and having this quota in place allows you to place a limit on how much space this backup can occupy. Now, Synology NAS does support encryption for your Time Machine backups, but you want to make sure you enable that encryption from your Time Machine settings. Don't use the shared folder encryption on DSM. Rely on the Time Machine backup task encryption settings. Now, on the topic of backups, let's revisit that shared folder we created for Time Machine backup specifically. So if you remember from our file serving demo, we went into Control Panel and created a shared folder. This shared folder we named Time Machine, and this will be the one that we use as our Time Machine destination. We've already also enabled SMB and also broadcasted this folder over our Bonjour service. Keep in mind, we have disabled Recycle Bin for our Time Machine backup tasks. Likewise, we have left encryption disabled for this folder. You will want to do the same for your usage as well. Now, those are all the settings that you need for the shared folder themselves. We also created a Time Machine user specifically, and we've set certain restrictions for this specific user. We've set it so that this user only has access to that Time Machine folder, since that's the only activities this user will be partaking in. Underneath quota, we've also placed a limit for this user on this specific folder, and the reason being, this allows us to place a limit on Time Machine activities on the volume. If we let it run rampant, then that would mean that Time Machine would eventually fill up your volume on your Synology NAS. So having this quota helps you place a limit on that specifically. Now, back on our macOS device, let's actually get our Time Machine backup set up, and we're going to go ahead and mount right here, and go ahead and click Setup Disk. Now, once this is done, we're going to go through the full mounting process and authenticate our Time Machine user against our Synology NAS. And this is going to be where you can actually enable your encrypted backups for Time Machine. You're going to want to leave this enabled and actually set a password that you can remember here. Now, of course, once this is all set up, your Synology NAS is now set up and ready to go as your Time Machine destination for this macOS device. Revisiting Synology Drive. Previously, we discussed how you can use Synology Drive as a syncing platform between your macOS and your Synology NAS. In this case, we're going to talk about how you can use that same syncing platform to complete file-level backups of your macOS device. Since this actually functions using the same syncing platform as your Synology Drive regular sync tasks, the backup cadence is actually continuous rather than an hourly cadence you might see with other backup platforms. And because this is utilizing that same Synology Drive ecosystem, you're able to access your Synology NAS from anywhere, so you can actually back up your data from anywhere. So as you're making changes even remotely on your macOS devices, that data can be synced automatically to your backup residing on your Synology NAS, so long as you have an internet connection, of course. Before we begin setting up our backup tasks from our macOS device to our Synology NAS through our Synology Drive client, there's some settings we're going to want to enable on the NAS side first. To begin, let's take a look at our Synology Drive admin console, and we're going to take a look at our team folders that we have listed in this menu. Now, underneath team folder, you're going to see that the My Drive home folder location is actually disabled, and whenever we go to enable this folder, which we need for these backup tasks, it's going to prompt us to enable another setting inside of Control Panel. We're going to follow along with those instructions, enable this user home setting, and follow through with these settings here on this screen. And once that's all complete, our My Drive location is enabled as a team folder, and we can begin setting up our backup tasks. Back on our macOS device, we're going to select what NAS we want to back up to, and then we're going to choose what folders inside of our folder structure we actually want to back up. So for example, we can back up a desktop folder and back up a specific folder we have labeled right here. Now, you can also choose where you want this backup to live on the Synology NAS, although it's best to just leave it in the My Drive location. You can also configure some backup rules to back up just what you needed in this backup task. Now, once that's all complete, you can select what kind of backup mode you want this to run under, either continuous, manual, or scheduled. Definitely suggested to do a scheduled or continuous backup, so you never forget to actually run your backup manually. Now, once that's all complete, let's say you needed to do a restore. You can click this restore button and navigate to a specific point in time, a specific calendar date and time alike, and you're going to be able to then navigate through your folder structure as it sat when this backup was taken. And then you can navigate through this structure, select a file you want to restore, browse previous versions, select the version you want, and then click this download button here. And that's how easy it is to set up the backup task for your macOS devices to your Synology NAS utilizing your Synology Drive client. Now, in terms of Active Backup for Business for your macOS devices, you get the same core feature set you get with Windows devices, those physical PCs you can back up, while also respecting Apple's own end-user licensing agreement. So you still get the full backup by event policies, you get the backup windows and advanced retention policies, and the ability to use the recovery portal inside of Active Backup for Business. Alongside that, you can also enable encryption and compression at the individual task level, just like other Active Backup for Business elements. And finally, before installation, you want to make sure that you have full disk access enabled for Active Backup, as well as kernel extensions on your Mac for recovery, because you don't want to get those in place should you actually need to do a recovery in the event of emergency, for example. So you want to have all those in place before you do those initial backups. Next, we're going to talk about Synology Photos, a great way for you to regain ownership of your memories and regain ownership of your photo and video data. In terms of the connection options for Synology Photos, it's very similar to other Synology applications where you can access the system through your web browser, or you could use its corresponding application. In this case, you'd use Synology Photos for iOS. And this allows you to integrate directly with your Photos database, allows you to view all of your photos directly through this application, and it can do awesome features like unintended backups, so that you can back up your photos from your iOS device directly to your Synology NAS. And this backup procedure will also clean up those photos off of your iOS device once it's confirmed you have a backup of that photo inside of the Synology NAS Synology Photos application. Now, on top of this, Synology Photos is a powerful tool for personal use, for families, or even for professional use for photographers as well. So with Synology Photos, you're able to perform secure sharing. You can share photos, albums, videos with external parties, and you can select a validity period for that share and also password protect it. On top of that, Synology Photos gives you powerful browsing and organization tools. You're able to customize how your albums are generated based on people, objects that are recognized, locations, or other customizable conditions you set. You're also able to do advanced filtering by EXIF data to get all your photos from a specific location, or all your photos taken by a specific lens or camera, for example. And lastly, Synology Photos is your private cloud solution for all of your photos across many different devices. It allows you to retain control of your photos and break reliance on public cloud providers like iCloud and Google Photos. So taking a look at Synology Photos, this is true for many different Synology applications. You're able to interact with and manage your data through your web browser. This could be on your macOS device or your Windows device alike. So this is not macOS specific, the functionality you see here. You can do some great things like filter your photos, for example, via the EXIF data that is on that photo itself. So what we're going to be able to do is actually use our geolocation data from these photos and actually filter our photos down to specific areas that you visited, for example. So you can filter down by a couple different locations and see all of the different photos taken in those areas as an example. Likewise, once you've done all this different filtering inside of this environment, you're also able to easily share this data with third parties. And this is going to be where Synology Photos really shines for professionals and home users alike. You're able to right-click any folder or photo itself and then provide some sharing details like you see in this menu. You can get your share link, you can do a public or a private share, and you can also password protect those shares on top of adding things like a validity period to the share link itself. Now, once that's all complete, you can see all the different functionality for managing your data in Synology Photos. But what is most important for our macOS webinar here today is how the iOS application actually looks. So I'm on my main personal space inside of the iOS app for Synology Photos. Under the More option on the bottom right, we're going to be able to enable our photo backup option for our settings here. So once that's enabled, you can choose to back up only your new photos or anything that is on your device already, or you can resume previous tasks if you ever unlinked. You can also choose where you want these backups to live and other settings like that. Once that's all created, you can see my backup task is actually suspended, and the reason being is I have it set to only backup over Wi-Fi, and you can see I'm only connected on a cellular connection. So it's respecting those policies that I had in place whenever I initially configured this task. Likewise, there's some other great settings that you can see in this More menu here, and you can see there's specifically some deletion settings that you can have configured inside of your Synology Photos application. You're going to want to make sure you have the one selected that works best for you. For me, I'm going to have the top one selected in my backup tasks, although you can change that if you need to. There's some other settings you can also change in these more options right here. However, if you take a look at the free up space option, this is great for utilizing the premium storage on your iOS device most effectively. Is after you actually back up your photos and videos, you can actually free up space utilizing this option to actually be able to take more photos and that kind of thing on your device. Now, once that's all complete, we can also take a look at some other settings that we have for the specific backup task. You can also enable a feature called Focused Backup, which has a higher performance overall for the backup task. It can back up a larger amount of photos quicker than if you were running the backup normally. However, you can see there's some specific rules for actually enabling this and actually utilizing it correctly, so make sure you respect those. And once that's all complete, you can see that Synology Photos is now set up for backing up my photos on my iOS device, and I can browse my photos and videos and pull them up on demand just like I would with a normal cloud provider. In this case though, we are owning all of the photos and all the photo storage for our precious memories in this case, helping you break the reliance on public cloud providers by utilizing a Synology NAS. Moving on into section 4, let's go ahead and recap what we went over today and take a look at some next steps. To recap what we went over today, we started off by taking a look at macOS file serving options, essentially using SMB across the board and avoiding AFP at all times in the future. We also took a look at how you can utilize some different advanced features like SMB multi-channel, as well as link aggregation, and when you will see the most benefits in using those features. We then took a look at some macOS backup options, from using Time Machine and utilizing your Synology NAS as the destination to utilizing Synology applications specifically for your backup operations, that being Synology Drive backup tasks or your active backup for business operations we saw previously. We then took a look at Synology Photos and how you can manage your memories yourself and regain control over your photos and break that reliance on your public cloud providers like iCloud and Google Photos. Now, if you need help past what this webinar provided, go ahead and check out our Synology product online training page. We have hours and hours of video content there covering a range of topics. And if you need help past what those webinars provide, go ahead and check out our knowledge base. We have step-by-step guides on many different features there. And lastly, if you have questions past what those resources can answer, then go ahead and send us an inquiry, and our highly trained inquiry team will get your questions answered. Now, of course, if you're a business user with your own internal IT team, go ahead and reach out to onboarding@synologyamerica.com. We can get you connected with some resources. If you're a channel partner or a reseller, go ahead and reach out to sac_sales@synology.com, and we can get you connected with your technical account manager. And lastly, for our friends across the pond, if you have any UK offices or UK clients, go ahead and reach out to uk_sales@synology.com, and we can help you out there too. And with that said, thank you so much for tuning in and learning a little bit more about how you can use your Synology with your macOS devices. And until next time, take care.